for the evening. Again, this is a lecture class. We will have some in-class activities. I'm going to try my best to mix things up with lectures and videos and discussions to keep you interested and engaged. That's my challenge as an instructor, is to keep you learning and keep you engaged. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about what is sustainability, right? This is a class on materials, methods, and sustainability, so let's learn what that term means. So what are we going to do today? Right, I typically have an agenda about what we want to accomplish and then try to accomplish those things. We're going to look at some definitions of sustainability. We're going to look at nature, the natural world, as a model or potential model of sustainability. We're going to look at some ecosystems, past and present, right? The way that this part of the world was before Europeans showed up, the way it is now, and then try to apply some of those things to our business, right? Our business is the construction business, so we'll look at some of the attributes of green or sustainable buildings, and I'll try to wrap that up by talking about why it's important to you, to me, to us, to learn this material. Right, when I adjusted my slides for last fall, I put a couple of slides in here with this image of that nasty little bugger here that we're still working through, right? The SARS, the coronavirus. Right, just to highlight some of the things that are changing in our world, right? Obviously, COVID has impacted how we teach, right? In a couple of years ago, we would have been sitting in a classroom doing this. Now we are doing this virtually. What we teach is still evolving, right? How is our business going to change? How is what we all do going to change in the coming years? I don't quite know. We shall find out. Okay, well, you see a lot of terms thrown about, right? If you look at advertising or go to the grocery store, or right, you see people talk about things being natural or green or energy efficient or sustainable. What do those terms really mean, right? That's one of the things that we're going to try to work on this semester, is what does green really mean? Part of the way we'll do that again is with the LEED Green Building Rating System. So what does sustainable mean? Right, if you happen to have you're a piano player, right, you have a pedal on your at your feet that allows you to strike a note and have it ring out for a long time, right? So sustain means to continue or maintain something for a long period of time. Sustainable means the ability to endure or continue, right? To be able to maintained or kept going, right? So the idea of sustainability is that we want to do things that will last a long time, right? We want to build our buildings and operate our buildings in a way that we are not using up resources. We want to make sure that resources are available for human beings that will be on this planet beyond us, right? It's not fair if we use everything up and don't leave anything for our children and our grandchildren, or somebody else's children and grandchildren, right? That's what sustainable means to me. Here's one common definition of sustainability. This is back, what, 1987, away, some years ago now, right? This was an effort by the United Nations, right? The UN is kind of all the world governments put together, talking about sustainable development. And that was about, we want to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So again, we want to build buildings and operate buildings and maintain buildings in a way that doesn't diminish the ability of those human beings that'll be on Earth after us to be able to do the same things. We don't want to use up all the resources, right? The Earth's resources are finite. So how do we measure this, right? This is a sometimes a difficult thing to get our arms around, right? How do we know if our buildings, if our businesses, if the things that we are doing are sustainable? Well, one way of looking at sustainability is with what's called the triple bottom line, right? You're probably all familiar in a business context with the bottom line, right? In a private business, is the bottom line is typically thought of as how much profit that business makes in a given year, right? How much money is returned to the business owner or the shareholders, right? That's the bottom line. But in sustainability, we want to look at the triple bottom line. We obviously are still concerned with profits, but in the 3 P's formulation of the triple bottom line, we, along with profits, we want to look at the people and the planet, right? We want to balance all those things. Or in the 3 E's formulation of the triple bottom line, we want to look at equity or fairness, environmental, and economic, right? So we're not looking at just one dimension, we're looking at multiple dimensions of things. Right, so here's a chart that kind of looks at those 3 P's, people, planet, profit, and it looks like, you know, what that looks like when all those things come together, when they're in balance. Right, that's sustainability. That's what we are hopefully going to learn about this semester, right? How to do things that are not only profitable, but good for the planet and good for the people on the planet.
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have these slideshows downloaded on Blackboard?
They are not there yet. I will put them up. Actually, I will get a little better and I will have them there ahead of time, right? Okay. My bad. I have these on my Blackboard and I'm running through them, but I will put them up. I will try my best to put them up ahead of time so you can look at them as well.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I enjoy looking through them at the same time.
No, that's good. I will. Quite often, I'm polishing these up on over the weekend, so I will make it my commitment to you to have the lectures, to have a PDF of the lectures up by Sunday evening. Might be late Sunday evening, depending on how much fun I'm having over the weekend, but I will put them up. The challenge for me is that this is a field that's ever changing, right? And not like your English, the person who teaches you English is probably teaching the same English class that they've taught for many, many years, right? I mix this course up every time I teach it, so that makes it a little bit more of a challenge for me to keep it relevant and current. But yes, I will do that for you, Sebastian. Good question. Yeah. Okay. Let me swap over to a video here. What is sustainability? So let me do that.
So what is sustainability? You've probably heard the term sustainability in some context or another. Maybe you've used some product or service that was labeled as sustainable, or maybe you're aware of some campus or civic organization that focuses on sustainability. You may recognize that sustainability has to do with preserving or maintaining resources. We often associate sustainability with things like recycling, using renewable energy sources like solar and wind power, and preserving natural spaces like rainforests and coral reefs. However, unless you have an inherent interest in sustainability, you probably haven't thought much about what the term actually means. This video provides a basic definition of sustainability. Simply put, sustainability is the capacity to endure or continue. If a product or activity is sustainable, it can be reused, recycled, or repeated in some way because it has not exhausted all of the resources or energy required to create it. Sustainability can be broadly defined as the ability of something to maintain itself. Biological systems such as wetlands or forests are good examples of sustainability, since they remain diverse and productive over long periods of time. Seen in this way, sustainability has to do with preserving resources and energy over the long term, rather than exhausting them quickly to meet short-term needs or goals. The term sustainability first appeared in forestry studies in Germany in the 1800s, when forest overseers began to manage timber harvesting for continued use as a resource. In 1804, German forestry researcher Jörg Hartig described sustainability as utilizing forests to the greatest possible extent, but still in a way that future generations will have as much benefit as the living generation. So while our current definitions are quite different and much expanded from Hartig's, sustainability still accounts for the need to preserve natural spaces, to use resources wisely, and to maintain them in an equitable manner for all human beings, both now and in the future. Sustainability seeks new ways of addressing the relationship between societal growth and environmental degradation, which would allow human societies and economies to grow without destroying or overexploiting the environment or the ecosystems in which those societies exist. The most widely quoted definition of sustainability comes from the Brundtland Commission of the United Nations in 1987, which defines sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As a quick example of sustainability, think about aluminum soda cans. In the past, many soda cans were used and thrown away without a whole lot of thought. The practice of throwing them away was unsustainable, since ready sources of aluminum are limited and landfills and trash dumps were filling quickly with wasted cans. Consequently, governments and private corporations began to recycle aluminum soda cans, and today, more than 100,000 soda cans are recycled each minute in the United States. A billion-dollar recycling industry has emerged, creating jobs and profits for the workers and businesses employed in that enterprise, while at the same time using limited resources more thoughtfully and reducing the impact on the environment. The process has become cyclical rather than linear, resulting in the continued use of materials. But sustainability is about more than just the economic benefits of recycling materials and resources. While the economic factors are important, sustainability also accounts for the social and environmental consequences of human activity. This concept is referred to as the 3 pillars of sustainability, which asserts that true sustainability depends upon 3 interlocking factors: environmental preservation, social equity, and economic viability. First, sustainable human activities must protect the Earth's environment. Second, people and communities must be treated fairly and equally, particularly in regard to eradicating global poverty and the environmental exploitation of poor countries and communities. And third, sustainability must be economically feasible. Human development depends upon the long-term production, use, and management of resources as part of the global economy. Only when all three of these pillars are incorporated can an activity or enterprise be described as sustainable. Some describe this three-part model as planet, people, and profit. Our current definitions of sustainability, particularly in the United States, are deeply influenced by our historical and cultural relationship with nature. Many American thinkers, writers, and philosophers have focused on the value of natural spaces, and those ideas contributed to the environmentalist movement that emerged in the second half of the 20th century. Grassroots environmental organizations like Greenpeace and the Sierra Club advocate for the protection and restoration of nature, and they lobby for changes in public policy and individual behavior to preserve the natural world. Seen in this way, environmentalism and sustainability have a lot in common. In fact, some people think that our current conversations about sustainability are the next development or evolution of environmentalism. However, earlier environmental debates often pitted the environment against the economy, nature versus jobs. And this dichotomy created a rift between those supporting one side of the debate against the other. Many of the current discussions involving sustainability hope to bridge that gap by looking for possibilities that balance a full range of perspectives and interests. Sustainability encourages and provides incentives for change rather than mandating change. And the three pillars of sustainability emphasize this incorporation. Essentially, though, sustainability looks for coordinated innovation to create a future that merges environmental, economic, and social interests rather than setting them in opposition. So in some ways, sustainability is the most important conversation taking place in our society today. The Earth is our home, and it provides all the things we need for our survival and nourishment. However, that home has limited resources, and our collective future will depend upon the successful management and use of those resources. We're living in a critical time where a global supply of natural resources and ecosystem services is declining dramatically, while demand for those resources is escalating. From pollution to resource depletion to loss of biodiversity to climate change, a growing human footprint is evident. This is not sustainable. We need to act differently if the world and its human and non-human inhabitants are to thrive in the future. Sustainability is about how we can preserve the Earth and ensure the continued survival and nourishment of future generations. You and everyone you know will be affected in some way by the choices our society makes in the future regarding the Earth and its resources. In fact, your very life may well depend upon those choices.
Okay. Boom. Let me get back. I'm actually going to post, when we go on break here in a couple of minutes, I will post the slides as well as the links to all the things that are on the slides. So again, my bad. I'll, Sebastian and others, I will get ahead of the game this time. So.
Thanks again.
So again, what are some of the things that we saw there? And again, we will learn about more of these things as the semester progresses. But we talked about linear versus cyclic systems. We talked about ecosystem services. We'll get to that here, I think, later this evening. Talked about biodiversity. Talked about human footprint. Let's look at one more video here, and then we will take a break. So let me tee this one up here if I can do that.
Hi, Alex here. What is sustainability? You must have heard a lot about sustainability and sustainable development over the last few years. I know I did. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes you were not totally clear as to what people really meant. So here is a definition that my workshop participants have found very clear and useful over the years. You may be familiar with the Brundtland definition, which is quite common. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Although this does not exactly tell us what to do on Monday morning, it's a very easy definition to understand and to communicate. There's another one that was created in the late 1980s that is more of a scientific definition. It was created by a Swedish doctor who found that there was a lack of common language around sustainability. So he thought, what if we managed to get a group of scientists together and to agree on what sustainability means based on science and thermodynamics, and maybe that will lead to understanding what the root causes of unsustainability are. So that's what he did. He put together a group of 50 scientists, mathematicians, physicists, and chemists, etc. And after 22 drafts, they agreed on several things. First, they agreed on the fact that we live in the biosphere. The biosphere is this very thin layer at the surface of the Earth where life is possible. Proportionally speaking, it is as thin and fragile as the skin on an onion. And within this biosphere, there are plants and animals. Plants produce oxygen and food, which are consumed by the animals. In return, animals produce fertilizer and CO2, carbon dioxide, which are used by the plants, and we have a cycle that is well balanced. This is a very quick cycle. We eat every day and we breathe every second, and it works well. Then they agreed on the fact that this system, the biosphere, is open with respect to energy. This means that energy from the sun comes in and radiations come out. This is also known as the first law of thermodynamics. They also agreed on the fact that this system is closed with respect to matter. So maybe you remember this very famous phrase from Lavoisier that says, nothing is created, nothing disappears, everything is only transformed. This is also known as the law of conservation of matter, and it means that except for a few satellites and meteorites, all the matter that was on Earth 4 billion years ago is still here today. It has changed form and the molecules have reorganized themselves, but it is still the same matter. The other thing that comes with this is that everything has a tendency to disperse. For example, take an iPhone and wait for 1 million years. It's very likely that you will get a pile of dust. Take a pile of dust and wait for 1 million years, you will never get an iPhone. It works only in one direction. This is also known as the second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy. So if everything disperses all the time, how is it possible that we live here in such a beautiful world with beautiful nature, cities, people, flowers, and so on? Well, this is what photosynthesis does for us. Photosynthesis pays the bills. Plants have the capacity to use the energy from the sun in order to produce oxygen and sugar using carbon dioxide and water. Photosynthesis reorganizes matter and creates new structure. The group of scientists also agreed on the fact that there are other cycles, very slow geological cycles, that bring matter from the lithosphere, that we also call the Earth's crust, to the biosphere. And these cycles are also very well balanced. Some matter moves from the Earth's crust to the biosphere through things like volcano eruptions and weathering, and just about the same amount of matter goes back from the biosphere to the Earth's crust via things like mineralization and sedimentations. And all this is very well balanced. These cycles take millions of years. They are very slow, unlike the previous ones, and they also work well. So this is what the scientific community agreed upon. This is the world we live in. So what is sustainability? Well, it's actually the capacity of our human society to continue indefinitely within these natural cycles. And sustainable development would be a development towards the state of sustainability. So you may be thinking, well, this does not exactly tell us what to do on Monday morning either. That's right, but it made it possible for our group of scientists to look at the things that we do to interfere with these natural cycles and they found 4 root causes of unsustainability, and these are the 4 things that we need to stop doing to be sustainable. They're all equally important, they're all necessary and sufficient. The first one is that we extract large flows of materials from the Earth's crust, the lithosphere. These materials are things like oil, like natural gas, heavy metals, etc., that are rare in the biosphere and that we extract in such large quantities that they accumulate and nature cannot cope. The second one is that we create in our society substances that accumulate in nature. We create chemical compounds that nature takes a very long time to break down, but we also create substances that already exist in nature, like carbon dioxide, for example, but in such large quantities that they accumulate and nature cannot cope. The third one is that we physically inhibit nature's ability to run the natural cycles. How do we do that? Well, for example, by chopping trees at a faster rate that they can grow, by systematically destroying ecosystems and replacing them with parking lots, roads, buildings, etc., so that nature cannot run its cycles anymore. These are 3 ecological root causes. Once again, there is no priority order. The fourth one is social and can actually be the most important of all. We create in our society barriers to people meeting their basic human needs worldwide. Human needs are very interesting, and you can watch our video about them if you're interested. There are things like creativity, identity, participation, and so on and so forth. So how do we do that? Well, for example, if you purchase a product that is manufactured in a sweatshop in a developing country, indirectly you support the business, and indirectly you contribute to poor working conditions in this factory and to the fact that these people are unable to meet their basic human needs. So this is the scientific consensus on the 4 root causes of unsustainability. I hope it helps you understand better what sustainability means and the fundamental reasons why we're not sustainable today. You will find many other engaging sustainability videos to learn and teach.
Okay, let me turn that one off here, and where did we go? Boom. I have to manipulate all these things as quickly as I can. So, again, those 4 root causes, things that are unsustainable, right? These basically saying that nature is in balance, and us as human beings have, in a variety of ways, disturbed the balance of these natural cycles. So what are the 4 things that this gentleman identified as root causes of unsustainability, right? Relatively large flows of materials from the Earth's crust, right? Taking a lot of stuff out, more than nature does. Accumulation of substances created by society in the biosphere, right? All the toxic substances that we as humans create that nature can't take care of. We get in the way of nature's cycles, and we erect barriers to people meeting their basic needs. So let's do this. We're going to take, I always try to get a break in, so let's take roughly a 10-minute break. While we're on break, I am going to go and post all this stuff, post lectures and lists of the links on Blackboard. So when we come back, we'll continue, and I will show you where I put all this stuff. So we'll get together again a couple minutes, 3-4 minutes after the top of the hour. Thanks, everyone.